Hey everybody, thanks for joining in again to the OC Modcast episode 7. And we have today, there is much ado about the Steam Machine. We're going to talk everything about the Steam Machine, from its surprise sticker price to how everyone is reacting to it, the reservation system, the performance comparison, and what it takes to build one yourself, and why you would want an official Steam machine anyway. So stick with me as we quickly go over the gaming news. And let me pull up Yak Off, the news choking Yak here, one of our favorites here at the studio. Uh, and let's talk about the news. So I promise all of this relates to the Steam machine. This is all related, all this news stuff. So AMD's latest driver brings FSR 4.1 to RDNA 3 series graphics card. That's the 7000 series, which also happens. So RDNA 3 is also the type of graphics card that's in the Steam machine. So people were wondering about if FSR was going to be in the Steam machine, and it will be. And there's some other little interesting bit of news that I'll talk about in a minute that relates to that. But my experience with this, so I tried this out because FSR 4.0 and 4.1 is, generally FSR doesn't look as good as DLSS does, but FSR 4 is actually pretty good. So I was kind of excited to try this out because I have a 7090 XFS. It's a 24 gigabyte card. I chose a 7000 series graphics card because it had 24 gigs of RAM and I needed that for video editing and stuff like that. So I was excited about FSR 4.1. So I installed it. I tried it out, and I had problems. Cyberpunk 2077 didn't. Hold on a second. Cyberpunk 2077 didn't work for me. It kept crashing when I had the new drivers. And when my monitor turned off and I turned it back on, the resolution would be hard locked at 640 by 480, which is a fail-safe VGA mode that Windows uses, which means the graphics drivers crashed. I saw some videos where people, I can't actually believe I saw this, that people were saying that if you criticize AMD's drivers, then you're a noob. So I just tried the drivers and I wasn't even looking for problems, and the problems just happened. But that was just something that was just kind of interesting. It's like the everything's about the Steam machine right now, and and the AMD graphics driver released, and I tried it out, and I didn't have a good experience. They promised good things, and I didn't have a good experience, and I rolled back to the driver version 25 something. So because the 26.6.2 had crashes. So another thing is there's been changes to Xbox. Back in April, Microsoft shifted gears from the backlash of Game Pass being $30 a month, and they changed it to $21 or $22 a month or something like that. But they raised prices again. So, and this is relevant to the Steam machine, I promise. So they're going to be raising prices for the 512 gigabyte Xbox Series S, the smaller one, the 1 terabyte Series X, and they're completely doing away with the 2 terabyte version. So there's not going to be a 2 terabyte Xbox Series X at all. So that means the Xbox Series X 1 terabyte is going to be $800, and it was $500 when it launched in 2020. So that's kind of significant, and that kind of segues, because when I'll talk about the pricing of the Steam machine in a minute and how people are reacting to it, but and one of my first thoughts was, okay, if the price is truly raised because of RAM prices, then the other consoles are going to be raising their prices too, which is going to shorten the delta between a console and a PC. So it's like people, so a lot of the arguments that people have been making about the Steam machine being not worth it when they're comparing it to consoles and all that sort of thing, that gap has narrowed. You really can't make that the comparison much anymore. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So this is the Microsoft raised the price of the Xbox again for the third time in 13 months. And that kind of goes into that they're likely going to be out of stock for Christmas. And later on this year, Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be releasing for consoles, PlayStation 5 and Xbox. And so if you want to actually be able to play Grand Theft Auto 6 for Christmas, then you need to get your console now, because prices are going up for the Xbox in August. Let's see here. Yeah, major retailer warned PS5 and Xbox Series X shortage are likely this Christmas due to the ongoing component shortages, price hikes, and surge in demand around Grand Theft Auto 6's launch. So, Nintendo is raising the price of their console in September. Xbox is raising the price of all of the Xboxes in August. There's probably something around the PlayStation, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But all the console prices are going up in price. So if you want a game this Christmas, go ahead and get your console now. What's interesting is I saw this news article and I thought I'd mention it because there was this bunch of speculation around Scalpers and the Steam machine when it launched, because there was a bunch of scalping when the Steam controller dropped. Scalpers were selling them for, $200 and more and all that sort of thing. But the Steam controller is more of an impulse buy. The price of the Steam machine, people are already balking at it, and I'm not sure if people are going to be scalping the Steam machine because people aren't going to be buying them. I mean, it's already too much of a price for a lot of people. But anyway, scalpers are pushing the Ryzen 7 5800X 3D anniversary prices above $600. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Secondary market listings exceed $600, with some units selling for up to $750. And AMD will keep producing the CPU, but I just thought that was kind of interesting that scalpers took the opportunity again. What happened here? So Valve has changed course on their 4K 60 claims for the Steam machine. Originally, it was Valve was claiming that this is going to be 4K 60. And what's interesting is that they changed course on this yesterday, the day that they locked the reservation list for the Steam machine. If you wanted to buy a Steam machine, you wanted to reserve it, you had to put in your name in the hat, but get yourself on the list, and they emailed you. They locked the list yesterday on the 25th. And that was also the same day that they rolled back their claims of 4K 60 performance. If you go to the Steam website, you go to Steam and look up Steam machine, you won't see any claims about 4K 60 or native 4K 60. The way to do that, people who actually have Steam machines, the way that they're doing that is through FSR and screen resolution, dynamic resolution tricks, and using ultra performance mode. So it doesn't look pretty. So you can get 4K 60, but with some tricks, and basically upscaling from 720p or 1080p to 4K, and then you can do it. But I don't see why people are making such a big deal about this, because honestly, everybody's upscaling using all these things. It's like, it used to be that 1080p 60 was my target. And now that I have a faster monitor and faster video card and all that sort of thing, I really like to crank it up to 120. And if a game won't do it, I'm using frame generation, just because I want to see it. I like the smoothness. So, but for someone who's used to console, whatever, you like to play at 60 frames a second, 4K 60 is a far cry. But honestly, 1080p is good enough. People who want 4K 60, you're asking a little bit much, even with the current console generation. But it's just kind of interesting that Valve has changed course on, or has silently removed messaging about 4K 60 claims on the Steam machine, which segues us to everything about the Steam machine. I'm just going to have this video going on in the background here. This is the Steam hardware video. So we're going to go through a bunch of different stuff. There was a fiasco about, let me just switch my camera over here. Forgive me, guys. Still working on the thing. So there was a fiasco about the Steam controller, and it seemed to me that, when the Steam controller, when there was a shortage and people were scalping them left and right, people were getting on a reservation system to get a new Steam controller, and they were going to, basically the soonest that you could get them was September. And I went, that is after the Steam machine launch is going to be, probably. We didn't know at the time. We found out, that was, we kind of speculated it was going to be last Monday, the 23rd, and it was. But I was like, this is kind of interesting that the timing, people can't get the Steam controller until after the Steam machine launch. And that's because they were reserving all of the Steam controllers for the Steam machines, for the bundles, because they want to sell it. So the only way that you're going to get a controller is with a bundle. And Valve wouldn't comment on pricing. And on the Steam machine, the whole time, even last year when they announced the Steam machine, they wouldn't say what its price was going to be. And that could have been for two reasons. They didn't want to scare people away, or they wanted to pleasantly surprise people with how affordable it was. Because that's part of the thing. Valve doesn't have the deep pockets that Microsoft does, but you can still keep the price down by reserving a lot of RAM in advance. Like, I kind of knew that the Xbox console hikes were coming, but it wouldn't be as immediate because Microsoft has secured the resources a year in advance. So, but Valve didn't announce the price of the Steam machine until Monday. And as we predicted, the press embargo lifted on June 23rd, and that's also when Next Fest ends. And Valve has usually released under these conditions. And sure enough, Monday morning it was announced and the internet flipped out. Let me show you, let me get rid of this, my Excel spreadsheet of the prices. Let me make this a little bigger so you can see. So the Steam machine, there's 4 different models. There's a 512 gigabyte model and a 2 terabyte model, and with or without a controller. So a combination, there's 4 different controllers. So it starts at $1,049 for the 512 gigabyte storage, and the Steam machine with a controller. So 512 gigabyte, $1,049, with a controller, $1,128. 2 terabyte is $1,349, and with a controller is $1,428. So so the good news here is that the Steam controller is $79 if you buy it with a bundle. So huzzah to that. But the other thing that is interesting is that if you do the math, and the price, if you were able to buy a Steam machine without any storage at all, and then put in your own 2 terabyte, it would cost like $200 less because, a 512 gigabyte, let me find my, so a 2 terabyte NVMe is about 230 or 240, $250. And a 512 NVMe, oops, let me show that. So a 512 NVMe is 80, $90. And a 2 terabyte is about 250, just standard Amazon, your price mover. But generally, that's how much things cost. So if you, this is still a little bit pricey. I understand Valve is not gouging people. They are not making a profit on these. I mean, they have to cover their costs for marketing and distribution and all that sort of thing, but they're not, making, they're not subsidizing the prices, like Microsoft and Sony does, but they're not making a huge killing on the hardware, if at all. I mean, I'm sure they're just breaking even after marketing and everything comes. So, but it's just kind of interesting that the price delta, they're charging more than they should if the only real reason that the prices cost as much as they do is because of RAM prices. Let's see. So that's the price of that. So there was a lottery system. Let me find my. In order to get your own Steam machine, you had to. Wait. I need to find Steam. So this is the Steam page. If you go to the store and look up Steam machine, there were 4 options here, and you could sign up for a list. If you see here, I got a reservation for a 512 gigabyte. So I got an email today. I'm officially in the reservation queue for a Steam machine 512 gigabyte. So that's cool. I already have a Steam controller. I'm going to upgrade it to 2 terabyte when I get it. I'm just stoked that I got on the machine. But the reason that I mention this is, well, the email, how this impacts you guys is that basically what happened is if you put your name in the hat for a Steam machine, they randomize the list, and if you showed up on the list for 2 different things, you got the higher tier and were removed from the others. So basically, they're trying to keep things as fair as possible by only one account can get one Steam machine for right now. So they randomize the list, and if you're lucky, then you got upon the list, and they're going to email you in a couple of days, or hopefully in a couple of days, and then you can buy, and you have 3 days to purchase it. So if you didn't get an email, go to Steam. This is the Steam client I have right here, and go look at the Steam machine, search for it, and see this. And if there's a little check mark in one of these, then that's the one, that's the model that you got reserved. So that's interesting. So Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay. So I don't know what happened there. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. Where did I leave off? Where did you guys lose? Where did I lose you? Yeah, so I can't tell when it's like, there we go. So when did I cut out? Oh, wow, right before the video. Okay, let's go back. So let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure which microphone this is, but let me just, so I might just repeat myself. So yeah, the value proposition of the Steam machine is, it's kind of interesting that consoles raise their prices, which narrows the gap. People are balking about $1,000 price for the Steam machine, but Xbox has raised their prices to $800. So, and that's the 1 terabyte Xbox Series X. They're doing away with the 2 terabyte, and so if you're going just from a proposition of a console gamer and saying it doesn't make, let me just switch. You guys can still hear me, right? Okay. If you're going from a console, just looking at this from a console perspective, and the saying, well, I'm going to do a console to this Steam machine, it doesn't make sense. But when the gap is narrowed between $800 and $1,000, and the Steam machine is far more capable, then there's something to be said about the value proposition. And people were saying, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, I've probably dropped out here, but I'm going to make that point again later about some reviewers talking about the Steam Deck and where were these same people defending Steam's hardware when the deck raised its price by $300. Still is more expensive, but the arguments about having an open ecosystem were kind of lost in a lot of reviewers. They just said, I can no longer recommend the Steam Deck over other handhelds. And now they're saying, oh, well, yeah, the Steam machine's expensive, but you get all these other benefits. So it's just kind of interesting. So, and I was talking about the hardware specifications for RDNA 3 and Zen 4. So the closest parallel to the custom graphics chip is this RX 7600M, which is a mobile graphics chip. It's got 28 compute cores, 8 gigs of memory. That's the closest parallel. And people are comparing this to the PlayStation 5. Even though this is Zen 4 and the PlayStation 5 is Zen 2, the PlayStation 5 also has 2 more cores. So 8 cores, 16 threads. And the PlayStation is, people have done some benchmarking comparing games between the PlayStation 5 and the Steam machine, and they're kind of neck and neck. In some things, the Steam machine is a little bit faster, and but for all intents and purposes, they're similar in performance. And so one thing that occurs to me is if the Steam machine is the same performance as the current consoles, and the current console generation is nearing the end of its life, does it still make sense to buy one? I mean, it's not like there's a new console coming this Christmas or maybe even next year. And also in relation to performance is, here's another thing, is people are saying that the they're doing comparisons with the PlayStation 5. And I just did a review, or a few weeks ago, people were talking about the memory configuration. Is 16 gigabytes of RAM enough? And so I did my own testing. And basically, part of that test was testing dual channel and single channel memory. And basically, and I'll show this in a minute, running in single channel mode, even if you have enough memory, can reduce the performance in your game by about 23%. And I'll show you that. I'll go ahead and show that to you here. And I have a video about that you can look on my channel. But all these ones in red were greatly affected by single channel RAM. I had basically, I did a test where everything was kept the same, 64 gigabytes in dual channel, 16 gigabytes in dual channel, and 32 gigabytes in single channel. And every one of these games, I did 10 games, and 6 out of the 10 games had a severe drop in performance when you went to single channel mode. And it had plenty of RAM, 32 gigs of single channel mode in it, and the 16 gigabyte, half the memory, creamed it. The issue is that it's running in single channel mode. We'll talk about that in a minute. So right now, the Steam machine, as it's being shipped, because of the RAM crisis, what's shipping in the Steam machines are 16 gigs single channel. They only filled one of the 2 slots. So in a lot of the games that they're testing, they're saying, oh, it's slower than the PS5. Well, it's also running slower than Valve originally intended, because they're shipping with a single channel configuration. Yeah, I'll just bring this. Oh, I'm not sure if I showed that to you. So if I had my desktop open, so sorry again, I'm a little scatterbrained from this little technical snafu, so I apologize. In these games, all these games in red, single channel. So all of these games, these frame rates were severely affected by single channel. They performed worse. A 32 gig memory configuration performed worse than 16 gigabytes because the 16 gigabyte was in dual channel mode. Some of these games, they performed exactly the same, whether it was single channel or dual channel. Elden Ring, Red Dead Redemption 2, Warframe, basically the same performance. But all these other games in red, if you're running a single channel configuration, then your performance drops about 23% compared to the 64 gig dual channel. In some games, the 16 gig and the 64 gig were basically the same, but in some, having 64 gigs of dual channel did make a big difference. One thing that's not shown in this graph or in this chart is the load times, and you can check out my other video for that. But needless to say, if it wasn't a drop in frame rates, then it was a measurable difference in load time. So single channel RAM absolutely affects the game. Some you'll notice more than others. Like a few seconds longer to load a game, maybe not as big a deal. But if you have lower frame rates, especially if you're trying to get to that 4K 60, it definitely does matter. Let's see. Yeah, the takeaway is that more than half the games tested had significant frame drops. And Valve was promising 4K 60. And yeah, Valve softened the Steam Machine's 4K performance promise. So all of the text that said 4K gaming at 60 FPS with FSR line is now up to 4K gaming with FSR 4.1. So the messaging has been changed for the promise of the Steam Machine, which is fine. Honestly, this is, I think a lot of the reviewers know, and what Valve has been targeting for the average player on Steam is 1080p, because they made a machine that would be better than 70% of the players on Steam. So, and most of them are playing 1080p. So honestly, the whole 4K 60 thing isn't that big a deal. This is a 1080p This is a 1080 machine, and it's going to do that just fine. But people are balking, saying that Valve is lying because you have to do that with FSR4. This brings back memories of when PlayStation said 8K gaming, and they softly removed that when they realized it couldn't do it, and people were saying, "Oh, we need to sue Sony." But it's kind of silly. But if you have an ultra powerful system, like I was mentioning before, I have a super powerful system, and I try and squeeze more frames per second out of it than I need. Many times I go to 120 frames at a minimum, and if a AAA game won't do it, then I'll use FSR, frame generation, and other scaling tricks. So you may hear these acronyms all the time. What is FSR and all that sort of thing? What is FSR and frame generation? It's not so much of a processing load to upscale an image and interpolate frames, as in, like, if you have like if I have an image here and then I have an image here, it will calculate and basically blend the two and make a image in between. So instead of two images, it'll make another one to make three. That's called image. That's temporal interpolation. It's not as much of a processing load for a GPU to create a third image and interpolate frames, but it is a higher load to create the frames from scratch. And so that's one trick of that's basically frame generation. And another trick is rendering at a lower resolution and then upscaling it. It's like, so if it renders at 720p or 1080p, upscaling it to 4K, but generally it'll be blurrier when you do that. So there's some tricks that the GPU does, but they call it AI, but it's not really AI, of making the image look better without being blurry when you upscale it. And that's basically most of the tricks that they're doing to get these fake frames, to achieve these high frame rates, is FSR and these frame interpolation technologies, which is a low computational task for a GPU compared to generating a whole new frame from scratch. So if you didn't know, now you know, because I'm sure you hear all these acronyms but may not know what it means. So another thing about, so if you don't like the prices, you can build your own. And I went ahead and did the research and went on Amazon and built out a shopping cart of what you can do to build your own Steam machine. If you want to build one on your own, here's everything you need in a shopping cart. A 512 gigabyte NVMe is like $87. A cheap power supply, $37. I mean, I was just going for the cheap thing. It's like, you will probably want to do better components, especially the power supply. But I'm just demonstrating here for you that I have a NVMe, a power supply, a very small form factor case, 16 gigabytes of DDR5 memory, and it's two sticks of 8 gigabytes. That's very important. Don't just buy one stick of 16 gigabytes, because then you'll run into a performance issue that I was mentioning earlier. And a Radeon RX 7600 graphics card. This isn't exactly the same as what's going to be in the Steam machine, because this is a full-ass graphics card, desktop graphics card that has a much higher TDP. So it's going to be more powerful than, because you can't just buy a graphics card for a desktop PC with a mobile GPU in it. And then a motherboard. This is a motherboard bundle with a chip, with a Ryzen 5 9600. So with this, earlier in the week I spec'd some stuff out, and it was under 1,000. But based on this, it was right around 1,020. So it's basically the same price as the low-end Steam machine. And the low-end Steam machine comes with some benefits that all of this won't, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Basically, there's a console-like benefit. So if you do this, you can just say goodbye to HDMI CEC, and that's basically the technology of when you turn on your console that it turns your TV on for you and switches to the appropriate input, things like that. Smart, being able to download while it's at sleep mode, the progress bar, the smart LED bar. There's other little things that the Steam Machine the Steam Machine is more appliance-like than you can do with your own if you build your own PC. And I was saying in an earlier article, it's like, how much is the spit and polish worth to you? Is it worth $300? That's when I thought that it was going to be $200 or $300 cheaper. But no, for about the same price, you build your own, and it's not as quiet or integrated. So it's right on. But this is also kind of desktop parts. If you want, so even though it's a mini ITX, you can go mini PCs. And so if you wanted to get a similar performance out of using a mini PC, it's going to be more expensive than that. So that's just kind of interesting. Let's see. You guys, just making sure my audio is still here. And scroll through my notes here. Yeah, for a mini PC, the Steam Machine is competitive, but with this packed together like an appliance, the Steam Machine does some things that a mini PC just can't do. You can build one yourself, but you're going to miss out on. You're not going to have any HDMI CEC, no instant on, no power on the TV on the controller. Okay, good, thank you. Matt says he can still hear me, so I wasn't sure because I heard something out of one of these things. I'm gonna have to check my gear out after this to make sure, do some troubleshooting, see what happens. So, given all that I've said, the price of the Steam Machine, you can build one on your own. Compared to a mini PC, this is a bargain. You can get a console-like experience that you can't get from a DIY PC. Because this is ultra quiet. I have a few mini PCs and they run like laptops, and that when you start playing a game, they get really loud and hot. And I've actually had some destroy themselves because they got too hot, because the heat sinks just don't keep up. And if you've seen any of the information about any of the teardowns of the Steam Machine, it is mostly heatsink and it's whisper quiet. But you're going to be limited on what you can upgrade on the Steam Machine. If you do your own, you can put anything you want in it and upgrade it when it's not cutting the mustard anymore. Let's see, who is this for? If you have kids or a spouse that's getting into PC gaming, then this is probably a good thing to do. It's easy to use. It's a PC. You can play PC games. But it's very accessible. If you're a console gamer that wants to play PC indie exclusives or PC only games, or dabble in things that require a mouse and keyboard, like World of Warcraft or anything like that, do that. You can take advantage of Steam sales. Some console gamers may not want to buy this because they already invested a lot of money in in a game catalog. But Steam sales are a real thing, and you can build up a catalog of PC games really quickly, pretty cheap. Matter of fact, there's a Steam sale going on right now. Red Dead Redemption is like 75% off, and there's other things that are like under $10 that are. So that's kind of interesting. Go to Steam, check it out. So. Also, if you're interested in emulation and don't want to put an emulation box together, there's a script you can run. I actually have a video about how to do this on any Steam OS hardware, Steam Deck, Steam Machine, Bazite, on how to put together an emulation front end. And it's pretty simple. And all you got to do is just copy your ROMs over and just play. And so if you're interested in that, a Steam Machine also makes sense. Why you shouldn't buy this? Like I said, console gamers that already have an extensive library of games, but Steam sales are a thing. If you care about Xbox points like I do, you can still get Xbox achievements through through Xbox games that are sold on Steam. So you don't have to say goodbye to your Xbox achievements if you go PC games. And since it's a PC, you can stream your Xbox games through the cloud. You can do anything on a PC. So uh, you can actually play Xbox games on a Steam machine. There's nothing stopping you. uh, and when I was talking about emulation and stuff, like I used to have a PSP way back in the day, and I just took the game files, my save files, and just plopped them into uh, the emulation folder of PPSSPP is what it's called. It's a PlayStation, it's a PSP emulator, and it just picked it right up. So you don't have to say goodbye to your console games. You can play them on a Steam machine. If you set everything up, you can play all of your old console games and still have their saves on a Steam machine. You can have one machine that plays everything, all the PC games from 30 years ago, DOS games, uh, your console favorites. It'll do everything. Matter of fact, I heard when someone had a Steam Deck and they said, "What is that?" Because I thought it was like a Switch. And he says, "Oh, it's a Steam machine." He's like, "Well, what's it play?" And someone said, "Everything," and it's true. It plays everything. Basically, if is who this isn't for is also people who are constantly upgrading their rig. If you have a big honking desktop PC, you may not see the value proposition for the Steam machine. Basically, if you if you don't see the value proposition, if you just scoff, if you think that buying this is stupid, then this isn't for you. But the Steam machine is going to sell out no matter what you think about it. The Steam Deck still has lots of life left in it, and it's one of the slowest handhelds, and it's increased in its price. As I was mentioning earlier, I see people either defending Valve for the Steam machine, but the arguments didn't apply to the Steam Deck 3 weeks ago, because they keep talking about now how the ecosystem and the value that Valve gives you, because you don't have to pay to play online and all that sort of thing. Let me find. Yes, so this is one reviewer. So it's like this same reviewer says, oh, let me actually show it. Says, here's a video. It's over. I can no longer recommend the Steam Deck. And now the Steam machine, it's a steal. They like completely flipped their dialogue. Where was this argument of how much of a value the Steam Deck is when they raised their price? Because the Steam Deck, in my opinion, is still one of the best handhelds, even though it's slower. And even though they raised their price. But here's the thing. So people are saying that it's, regardless of the Steam Deck or Steam machine, people are saying, I'm going to build my own Steam machine. Screw that. But I've never heard anyone say, screw Valve. I'm never buying from them again. Valve is still going to sell lots of video games no matter what the hardware is. Valve is just offering you another way to play. If you don't want to buy the Steam machine, play on something else. Play on something that you already have. Regardless of what anyone says, Valve is going to profit. Whether you buy a Steam machine or you're angry enough to build your own, or you're just happy to use what you already have. Sure, they might have made an unaffordable piece of hardware that's not accessible for everyone, but everyone's still able to game. Everyone who could game yesterday is able to game today and will be able to game tomorrow and next year. And Valve will still have great games on sale that don't require a subscription for online play and that gives you the freedom of choice of what you want to play on. So that's my rant on the Steam machine and all the different aspects of it. I have reserved a Steam machine. I'm getting one. I'm going to upgrade it. It may not be for you. It's not for everyone. But with the theme of Steam hardware this week, I have some things coming out next week. Next week, I have some controller articles. I have an alternative for a Steam controller. Not everybody wants a Steam controller. Not everyone can get one, but I have an alternative for you, and you're going to be surprised, and you're going to slap your head. You're going to be like, well, duh. So if you don't have a Steam controller and can't get one, don't fret. I'm going to show you how to unlock the full potential of your DualSense and DualSense Edge controller on the PC. I'm showing you how to wire a network cable, and I got some new product reviews for desk gadgets and some recovery hardware that actually had some surprising results. And now it is Retroware Friday. And going with the controller gaming theme, I have some. This is the Evil Controllers Master Mod Xbox 360 controller. So this was a controller, see it is modified here, but it had some codes that you could put in, basically some button combinations that you could do to basically cheat in macros, like hot fire, like a rapid fire, and do some macros that worked in like Call of Duty and things like that. So I'll just quickly go through that, but you know, it was basically an Xbox 360 controller that they modified to do. Yeah, look at that. They actually put a custom cap on there, and they have the PlayStation. Look at here. They have the PlayStation type thumbsticks, which I'm not a fan of because my fingers kept rolling off of them. But that was something that's different for an Xbox 360 at the time. So this is just a modified Xbox 360 controller. But you know. Here is a Nyko controller for the Wii called the Wing controller. And this was just all sorts of horrible. You pick it up and felt it, and it just felt cheap and plasticky. And it had a nunchuck thing, adapter you put on the back of a Wii remote. So this would connect directly to this with your Wii remote. So it went through the Wii remote to connect to your Wii at the time. But, you know, Nyko made some interesting stuff, but it's another controller. This isn't too weird. It's a little unusual, but Retroware. It was okay. But this one's weird. This is the Cytec Rumble Pad. But what's interesting around here is like, because if you look at PlayStation controllers and you see Xbox controllers, the D-pad and the thumbsticks, you know, people could, there's preferences about where the thumbstick should be. But this let you, this part right here, this plastic piece would just come right out. And you could switch it. So there's the little pins on the back where you just switch it. So now the thumbsticks are together like they are in a PlayStation. But this was a PC controller. This did not work on a PlayStation at the time. And it was all sorts of cheap and felt horrible, and it was a piece of crap. But this was a PlayStation controller. It was the Wildfire PS3 controller, and it just felt weird. It looked weird. The buttons are mushy. It was interesting. It was a third-party controller, but it was a thing. Yeah, it was really plasticky. But anyway, that was just some old console stuff. Excuse me, some old controller stuff I wanted to show, given the theme of Steam machines, controllers, and all that sort of thing going on right now. So let me see if there's anything else going on that I got for you guys. I think that's pretty much it. So that was my rant on the Steam the Steam machine. It's the internet is losing their mind about the price They're going to be just fine. I'm getting one. If you were excited about it, you should still be excited about it. It's a good gaming console. It's a PC. I'm a fan of the Steam Deck, and I'm going to be a fan of the Steam Machine. I'm going to be able to just take my Steam Deck when I'm finished playing, go to the Steam Machine, and my saves will be right there. And it's just going to be great. Oh, someone says that they're getting the $1,500 Steam Machine. Well, so you won the lottery. You were lucky. I signed up for all 4 of them, and I was only able to get the 512 one without the controller. So yeah, it's good. I'm glad that people are buying them. I actually have a poll right now if you go to the post section of like, if you won the lottery, or basically if you put your name for the Steam Machine lottery, did you get an email? So if you could fill that out, I'd love to see how many people actually put their name in the hat and who got one. But like I said, if you didn't get a Steam Machine, you can easily make your own, or you can just play on what you already have. And I have some articles and have some new articles coming out about making your own Steam Machine, getting the most out of it. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate all the support. There's been a lot of exciting news about Steam and PC gaming this week, and it was an awful lot. And it was a marathon putting all this content out. So I appreciate you guys, tuning in, and thanks for all the support. I put out an article about decking and how to rescue your Steam Deck if it crashes, and I've gotten a lot of support from that, and that's really taken off, and I appreciate people giving me the thanks for that. And that's what I want to do, continue to help everybody, and everybody should have fun, and I appreciate everybody tuning in, the support. And next week is July the 4th. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a podcast on Friday or not. If I do, maybe it's Saturday. So, but next Friday is July 4th. So everybody be safe, have fun. I'm going to be playing online. So I will see you guys then. Thanks again. And next time, whether it's Friday or Saturday or the week after, it's going to be episode 8. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys later. And again, have fun.